the minute, Marty. This is absolutely horrendous. I have clockwork internet tonight. This is absolutely, totally unacceptable. There you go.
But the thing is, Justin, they have announced this week that we're going to get a major upgrade in the whole internet system. All will prevail. Do not panic.
Well, I like bullshitters, but I hate bullshitters when I smell them, because there's Mark Kerr saying already, Eep, what's going wrong? I'll tell you what's gone wrong. They were working in the street out there tonight, and we're not as late as we were 1 week, 40 minutes late. We're only 10 minutes late, but we're on mobile broadband on my phone, which you can maybe see is sitting over there behind me, charging at the same time. So it's probably going to be white hot by the time we finish tonight. And boy, do we have a packed show tonight for you. What's up first this week, Marty?
As usual, Justin, we're going with the news. We've brought this in as a big feature. This is our news section where we do a few wee stories from what's been going on in the whiskey world this week. Then we have an interview with Neil Conway from the Waterford Distillery, who is the head brewer and man responsible for the first ever organic Irish whiskey. Now, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, so it's nice to get talking to him.
Right, fantastic stuff. And was a special guest as well tonight as well.
We have Mr. Michael McKeown from the Raasay, this rather lovely looking box, the Raasay Distillery. And he's going to join us and let us know about his new book, which I got today. I read this afternoon. So
how come you got a free copy and I didn't get a free copy?
Good looks and charm, Justin. Good looks and charm, son.
So what's the first news story this week then? Because we've got to pack it all in the next hour.
Right. Here is the news. Today marks the day the Crolly Distillery down in Donegal filled their very first casks of whiskey. Now, they released the pictures showing them filling their first 12 casks this afternoon. Now, the whiskey will be double distilled single malt. That's what they plan to do first of all. Then they are going to do some pot still. They haven't said what they're going to do with the pot still, but you can see, obviously, you can see the labels and stuff coming up that you're bringing up. Now, Crolly is down in Donegal, as I say. It's about 10 minutes east of Donegal Airport. And the really interesting thing about these guys is the stills that they're using. They're using ex-cognac stills, which are a very weird shape for what we would be used to in terms of whiskey stills.
Is that why they look so strange there in that photograph?
They do. Now, cognac has to be double distilled, but the shape of the still, I don't know if they're direct firing the way cognac distillers do, and I'm not sure of exactly what setup that they're going to have with this. But these are the whole purpose of cognac and Armagnac stills as well, are that they're set up just for flavour. Now, these are alembic Charente shell stills, I should say. So these are something new to Irish whiskey. There'll not be anybody else doing this. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, where they've set up the distilleries in an old dolls factory, which I quite like the lighting of that. If anyone wants to, they can go on to the Crolly Distillery website and check out. They have what's called the 180 Club, which means you can buy a cask of whiskey. It's a cask ownership scheme, and if you want, they will fill a cask for you and go and have a look at their website. A cask is about €6,000, which is not bad for 200 litres of new spirit. By the time you take it down, water it down, you could end up with probably about 300 bottles. So, you know.
Would you do that yourself in this case, would you?
Well, since me and you are both tour guides and we haven't earned a penny this year, I'm going to have to say no at the minute. should the government finally get around to giving us some money, I might. You would never know. You would never know. What's this space?
All right, all right. Where are we heading next? Are we heading to Mexico?
Mexico, arriba, arriba. We are going to Mexico, where this story sort of warmed my heart this week. There was two shoppers who took advantage of a 3-for-2 offer at the Soriana supermarkets. Now, the supermarket refused to honour when they tried to buy some whiskey on 3-2 offer. They tried to buy 2,340 bottles. now, normally these 3-for-2 offers and 2-for-1 and all that kind of stuff have limits, but they forgot to put this on the label. So the supermarket refused to sell them the whiskey. So they contacted Profeco, Profeco, which is the Federal Consumer Protection Agency. Now, they were called in. They ruled in favour of the two guys, the couple who were buying it. I don't know whether they were men or women. And they ruled in favour. Now, this is all part of the Mexican version of Black Friday. So this is Buen Fin, the good weekend. So Profeco ruled in their favour. They then sent an agent down to oversee them loading the pallets of whiskey.
Oh boy.
Filmed it and then put it on their Twitter channel so that it's a warning to other supermarkets and retailers to put limits on these things. So they paid for 1,560 bottles, but got 783. Yeah.
Some people can do it. Some people can do it. The jammy swords. So from Mexico, which is lovely and warm, to a freezing cold Scottish island.
Beautiful place, absolutely wonderful place. We're going to the Isle of Raasay, up on the west coast of Scotland. Now, the Isle of Raasay is a tiny little place. You have to go up. You catch the boat across, drive a fair bit up Skye to a place called Sconser, and then get another ferry from Sconser across to Raasay. Now, the reason I've highlighted this is because I stayed there a few years ago in the distillery. Actually, in the distillery is where you stay. It's an absolutely beautiful place. I mean,
I must admit, it looks fantastic. Is this the place you stayed in here? Is it? Yeah.
That's basically the view out in front of the distillery. That's the Isle of Skye you're looking across to, and it's just stunning. The people who are there are absolutely fabulous people. It's brought so many jobs to the island. There's only like 150 people or something live in the island. Excuse me, and something like 100 of them are connected to the distillery via employment, whether that's farmers or whatever. They had out a couple of different bought in whiskies. They bought whiskey from other places and finished it themselves. But they've released their own spirit this week. So it's a single malt, natural colour, non-chill filtered, 52%, matured in first fill Tennessee casks, finished in Bordeaux red wine casks. So they tell you to expect almonds, hazelnuts, caramel, toffee, blackberry jam, savoury spice. At the minute, they're using 100% Scottish barley, but they are growing their own barley on Raasay.
I thought you were going to say they're using the Swedish barley and people are up in arms.
Raasay's not the ideal place to be growing barley, right? Because it's extremely wet. It's a very barren place. So the yields that they get from the crops are really, really low. But they've convinced the farmers to stick with this, that they'll buy it off them. They want to use 100% Raasay distillery or grain. They want to use 100% Raasay water. They want to store it and bond it there and mature it there. They use peat from the Highlands. They can't use their own peat because I don't think there is any on Raasay. But it's a fabulous place. And where you stay when you go there, you go and you stay in the actual distillery, and the rooms are beautiful, and they have a whiskey bar for you, a self-service whiskey bar for you to avail yourself of different whiskies. And it's an honesty bar, so you go in and you pour out your tipos, but they have a lovely range of stuff. But that's honestly, if you're looking somewhere nice to go when you can't actually go anywhere these days, really, it's a nice place to go and visit. And yeah.
Looks lovely. Hopefully, we'll be able to get next year because we haven't been anywhere this year. Let me see. We've got good news about last week as well, don't we?
Well, we do, Justin. Yes, we have good news. Remember last week we done about the auction about the Churchill painting of the Johnny Walker bottle. And
I do. Did you buy it? I thought that's why you were broke. You bought it.
Remember, we dropped the hint to tell people that if they wanted to buy either me or you a Christmas present, that would be a nice one. Well, some of our wonderful fans, one of them have stumped up £900,000 to buy it. So
you're kidding. Tell me you're kidding.
No. £900,000. That's Sothebys for a painting of a Johnny Walker bottle.
Now I have seen some of Churchill. I was going to say Hitler's paintings. I've seen some of Churchill's paintings, and in the Cabinet War Rooms in London, and they're not bad. But I don't ever remember anything going for as much as that before.
Well, I think it's maybe a Johnny Walker fan. It's one of our fans, Justin. This is our Christmas present. So, Secret Santa, don't be tempted. Whoever it is, don't break the surprise. I want it on Christmas morning. You know. He's up here as well, wouldn't it? Just sitting up here.
It would look nice just up there behind me there. But I do like Churchill, very therapeutic painting. So what's next? Because we've still got a couple more stories to come, and I hope I've spelt this guy's name right. But he's a professional. Is he baseball or basketball player? Baseball.
He's a baseball player for the Houston Astros. He's a shortstop. Now, his name's Carlos Correa. It seems to be a very Latin American theme tonight. But he held an auction, or his family's foundation, the Correa Foundation. They held an auction. The foundation raises money to help children affected by illness and poverty. So good on, fair play. But what caught my eye about this story is, well, the foundation was actually partnered by Fabergé. Now, you can make of that, children living in poverty be it getting given money by Fabergé. Well, fair enough, I suppose. But anyway, well, Carlos paid $55,000 for a bottle number 17 of the Devil's Keep by the Craft Irish Whiskey Company. Now, there's 333 bottles of this apparently, but no one I know seems to know anything about this.
Is this it here? Is it? Yeah.
Probably it's the one. Yep. With the. It's a very strange thing, Justin. They have. You can buy it on pre-order for £10,000. Now, it's all a bit mysterious. It's triple distilled, matured in American, French, and Hungarian oak. And if you go to the website, it talks a lot about lustrous calf skin, leather-like silk, which I don't know what that means, obsidian stones, and a sensory scent. In the first of its kind, we have captured the angel's share. Breathe in aged oak and creamy vanilla as the whiskey evaporates over time. This is known as the angel's share, and until now, only ever experienced by those who have walked in the halls of whiskey under bond.
Is he Puerto Rican? Somebody's saying he's Puerto Rican.
It could very well be. I don't know the chap at all. Now, there's something a bit odd about this, which I can't quite put my finger on, because, well, I asked a few people who would know this kind of thing about the Devil's Keep whiskey, and none of them know anything about it, which seems a bit strange to me, because the Irish whiskey industry is not very big.
Right.
So it's on pre-order, but they got a bottle of it and it sold for $55,000. It's not him paying that money for it, because it's all going to charity anyway, so that's fair enough. It's just a bit strange, that you have to stump up £10,000 for a bottle of whiskey. from people that you don't know anything about. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So I don't know. I may stand totally and utterly corrected, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway.
And we're going on to my favourite subject now, cocktails. I do like cocktails. And our favourite distillery, maybe, or certainly the biggest and the oldest, technically, distillery in Ireland. We're going to go controversial tonight. Bushmills, they've invited us to do a special cocktail thing. Isn't that fantastic?
Right, Bushmills. Justin and Marty are going to Bushmills. Sort of a cocktail versus classic showdown. Now, this is open to everybody, by the way. This is the point. It's part of the Black Bush Stories series. Now, if you go to blackbushstories.com, you can see this. It's a whiskey, hot sauce, and cocktail masterclass. Now, the founder of Rebel Chili, Paul Moore, down in Cork, teamed up with Bushmills brand ambassador Lauren McMullen, and it's going to be a celebration of the fusion of whiskey and hot sauce. Now, this may seem surprising, but Tabasco have done this. Tabasco sauce is aged in ex-whiskey barrels.
Okay.
And also, there's another interesting fact for you. Michael Henna, who it says on Tabasco sauce, Michael Henna family originated from Antrim. So there you go. So anyway,
I've actually seen, isn't it that Portillo has gone to their factory in Florida or somewhere like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the distant memory, I remember him wearing pink trousers as always. Anyway, he's going to be revealing his Black Bush barrel-aged hot sauce. Now, it starts. There's 13 different episodes of this, so it's not just all crammed into one night. And it starts on Thursday the 26th and runs through to Saturday the 5th of December. Tickets are £10 or €12. It's only available to those in Ireland, unfortunately. Now, when you go onto the website, if you click on the events and then click on the whiskey and hot sauce event, it comes up with a sold out sign. It's not sold out. There are 2 dates that are sold out. All the rest of them still have tickets available. So if you see sold out, click on it and go through. It's a quirk on the website. I checked it out this afternoon. So, as I say, they say they have everything there for that you need, barring ice. So there'll be whiskey in it, there'll be hot sauce, the stuff to make all the cocktails. So for you, it'll be all the sparklers and the glitter, and like a Strictly outfit.
I'm looking forward to this. Definitely looking forward to this. There's Dale McDonald saying he picked up a bottle of Bushmill single malt, 10-year-old today. Can't wait to pour a dram. You've probably got some in front of you. I'm on the soft drink tonight, on the lime juice.
Look, I have here, Justin, a bottle of Black Bush, but not any old bottle of Black Bush. This is an old bottle of Black Bush. This is vintage. We might do something with this at Christmas. Watch this space.
Okay. So it's tonight's first guest, and we're about 10 minutes away from Michael McKeown and Matt Darcy's. But we're going even further south tonight. Where are we heading to?
We are heading down to Waterford to talk to Neil Conway, who is the guy who oversaw the project to bring an organic Irish whiskey. So interesting project. We'll have to get. I like a lot of what Waterford are doing. I like the style, the design of the bottle and stuff. So, yeah, nice.
So here we go. So you'll never guess where we're going today. Well, of course, we're going live to Neil Conway down at Waterford Distillery. Marty, it's a great week to have Waterford on because they're going organic.
Yes, we mentioned this a few weeks ago, Justin, about the very first organic Irish whiskey. Now, there's a few places that have done this, various other places, but this is the first time in Ireland. Now, back in the day, obviously, before artificial fertilizers and so on and so forth, all whiskey would have been organic. But now there's a push to try and keep this sort of environmental message, keep on message as such, and try and make all these improvements. And it's all these little improvements. We keep saying this, Justin. Only industry can fix these kind of things. So it's all to be encouraged. So we have Neil Conway from Waterford, who's the head brewer down and production manager as well, I think. And he's going to explain how it all came about. So Neil, hello.
Hi guys, how's it going? Thanks for inviting me onto this podcast. Or not podcast, is a live edition of your talk.
Yeah. So Neil, how did it come about? How did you decide? You oversaw the project. I'm right in that.
Yeah. So from the very beginning, I suppose my background is I was a brewer for Diageo for many years. I worked in Waterford Brewery, but it was an old brewery, and I spent a bit of time up in St James's Gate in Dublin. As a brewer in the famous Guinness brewery, but I came onto the project in Waterford about a year after it started. In that year, the Mark had the organic growers lined up, but what I can do is I bring you through how he got the organic growers and why he got them to grow barley organically for this Gia whiskey that we have in the background. So obviously, you probably know Mark's background. He came from Crolly Distillery in Scotland. He came over to Ireland. He was looking for a distillery to start off, as he says, it's a blank canvas. He brought what he first started Brook Daddy to Ireland. So he wanted to get single farms. He wanted to produce whiskey from terroir-based barley. So looking at the microclimate, looking at soil, and looking at varieties. But within that, on all single farms, all this barley then would be harvested, stored separately, malted separately, and then distilled separately. So that's all the conventional single farms. But on top of that, then he wanted to look at growing barley organically. Like to date, there hasn't been any distillery in Ireland who has grown barley organically to produce an organic whiskey. As you said earlier on, Justin, Martin, it was back in the early days. Obviously, barley would have been grown organically, and probably over the last 70, 80 years, more commercial barley has been grown, and fertilizers have been used to improve yields and X, Y, and Z. And by doing that, we think that flavor I won't say gotten rid of, but you're minimizing the impact of flavor because of the chemicals you're using.
Do you consider yourself a purist then, Neil, going back to traditional methods then?
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to go back to see. Let's look at organics. Like organic is more of a purist. Use it with purist, looking at flavor. It's looking about soil. It's looking at microclimate. So let's look at what growing organic barley gives to the finished product. We also grow barley using biodynamic techniques, but we can talk about that in a few minutes if you want. But yeah. First of all, we had to get the organic growers. There wasn't anyone growing barley organically. There was people growing oats organically for different other products. Yeah. So we had to go on and source the organic growers first. That was the first job. Like this didn't happen overnight. This is a 5-year project. So when Mark purchased the old Guinness brewery in Waterford and transferred it into a working distillery, the first thing he had to do was source single farms to supply into him. He needed to find a facility to store all these batches of barley separately. He needed to find a malter that would malt all this barley in separate batches to bring to the distillery. So it was a massive undertaking in a very, very short space of time, because logistically, this just doesn't happen in Ireland, and if not anywhere else in the world. So the logistics side of it had to be sorted out first, and the conversations over a 6-month period with farmers, with our malting team, with our barley storage facility in Kilkenny, Dalton's, Chancellor's Mills. All of these guys had to understand what Mark was doing, and then second of all, they had to agree to be able to do what he wanted to do. It's not as easy as just growing barley out the back and bringing it in. Like there's a whole logistics problem in the background that had to be sorted, and to be honest, we were very, very lucky that farmers came to us who wanted to grow. Dalton's brothers in Kilkenny built specific warehouses we call the Barley Cathedral and Chapel that store all these individual batches separately. Our maltings were able to malt our batches separately through their Bobby plant, which is a test maltings they had. So we were very fortunate that people believed in what Mark wanted to do and believed in the story. And it wasn't just a 1 year, 2 year contract. This is looking into the future of what the model would look like. So all these people built for the future. So that was the first thing that had to happen. And then Mark needed to go out and look for organic growers. So the word was put out through our Malster team with them, our Malster Inch Malt in Athy in Kildare. These are the guys who have the direct contracts with the farmers. So these are guys who have an agronomy team went out to the organic farmers and asked would one even be interested in growing barley for the previous for the upcoming harvest, which would have been in 2015. So luckily enough, we had our first bottle there. You had in the picture there, which was Gia 1.1. This is part of the Arcadian series. So in that bottle, we have 5 organic growers. You have so who came to the table. Now that's a mixed organic batch. So to date, we've launched all single farm batches in our conventional series of whiskey. So this is the first, I won't say a cuvee, but it's a mixture of organic farms, because these organic farmers couldn't supply us with enough barley to make one single batch in the first year. Over the crop years we have 2 single organic growers who can supply us with a single batch. That will become a single farm release in 2 or 3 years' time. But that bottle you've there is a mixture of 5 organic farmers in one bottle.
Now, you mentioned there biodynamic. Now, what's the difference between organic and biodynamic? Because I'm not 100% sure myself. Okay.
So again, this is Mark's idea. Mark obviously Mark Rainier comes from a wine background. Half his working life was in the wine industry between France and the UK, and the other half was in whiskey from Crolly Distillery in Scotland and Waterford Distillery. So the concept of biodynamics came from the background he had in wine. Few of the top French wines that are out there grow their grapes using biodynamic techniques. They believe that it enhances the flavor. So Mark wanted to bring that to Ireland and see why not do it for whiskey. Let's try it out. So again, he needed to get people to grasp this concept and grow barley using biodynamic techniques. So what he did is he requested 2 of the organic growers transfer from growing organically to biodynamically. So Trevor Harris was one of them. He went from growing organic to biodynamic. There was already a biodynamic farmer, John McConnell, up in County Kildare, County Meath, just near Slane. He was growing biodynamically already, so we brought him on board. Mark also brought these 3 guys over to Alsace in France and introduced them to grape growers who grow using biodynamic techniques. So what it is, it's a step further than organics. It's looking at the lunar calendar to grow your barley. It's using preps. So what to do is put cow dung in cow horns and bury them in the ground. It's all mad stuff, but hey, it works.
It sounds like the Druids. It sounds like the Druids. Not a bit of wonder he's near you.
That's what it is, Justin. It works in the wine industry, so why not in the whiskey industry? So let's try it out. Let's see what flavors we get. So again, it's an addition. It's all about flavor. It's all about terroir. It's all about soil and microclimate. So let's see. Let's investigate it. This is, I won't say a project. This is an investigation to see what flavors we can find out there. They might be okay, but they might be fantastic.
But the thing is, with Irish whiskey being where it is and basically still being in its infancy, if you like, it's in some ways it's a very sort of constrained Wild West, because it's open to all this new stuff, because Irish whiskey never had this before. So the fact that it's new organic products, biodynamic, single farm, traceability, etc., and I know that this is their big thing. They want to say this is single farm, this can be sourced, traced back. It's like really good quality beef. You go and you buy it, and you can trace it back to the very cow if you want. These things, certainly for a lot of people, this is really important, so they can buy it the whole journey. And I mean, it's to Waterford's credit in many ways.
Yeah, and it is, man. Look, it's for us. The importance is about the provenance of the barley. and the transparency. We are transparent in everything we do. We share with the public everything we do. I'd like to think like this is not a marketing play. This is an investigation of the flavour. This is about going back to the farm. It's going back to the barley. It's going back to the soil and investigating what we can find there, and really understanding the barley. For me, coming into a distillery as a brewer, that it was a new industry to get into, and I was really briefly focused on bringing in raw materials and you brew them. It's all about yield and making as much spirit or product as you can with what you had. We've completely turned this on top. This is something I wasn't used to at the start. It's not interested in yield. This is all about looking at raw material, bringing it back to the farm, bringing it back to what makes whiskey. Well, what makes whiskey is barley. Barley and raw materials make whiskey. Water, yeast are other components. Right, yes, wood does play a role in the production of whiskey. And for me, it's all about the quality of the new make spirit that you put into the barrel for maturation. Yes, of course, wood does have an impact on flavour, depending on the type of cask you use, and X, Y, and Z. But for us to focus on barley and a starting point for the maturation stage, and understanding everything about that new make spirit, what flavours that raw material will bring to the start of the maturation process.
Yeah, the one thing I do really like about Waterford is the design. I love the new bottle. It looks fabulous. The blue glass, the labelling and stuff all looks fabulous. Because I think there's a lot of people have went sort of standard in that, and obviously that's fine. But it's all about the presentation as well. And when you look at it, it's the little things that make things stand out. And Waterford, all the different labelling and single farm batches, and I mean this is going to have to be a huge project over a very long time.
Yes.
And to keep that going is going to, you mentioned logistics earlier on. The logistics, all of that is going to be going forward probably more of a task. When most distilleries, it gets easier with age. With you, it's probably going to get more complicated.
Yeah, and it is. And look, and it's putting the focus on, because we started to stall very early in this, of getting the logistics right and on transparency correct, and being upfront about what we're doing. It's actually become easier now because we have everything in place now, and it's easier now to keep batches separate and to prove prove that we're doing everything we're saying we're doing. All right. Yes, there is costs in what we're doing. Like organic barley is not cheap. Biodynamic barley is definitely not cheap. And then we're also using heritage. We're looking at bringing heritage varieties back online, varieties that haven't been seen in Ireland in over 100 years, or starting to grow at ease again. That has a cost. You mentioned there then the packaging, the bottling. There's no point in putting all this effort into the barley then if we're not going to look after it through the distillery and look after it in maturation and then into packaging. So we have invested heavily in the raw material, the cask portfolio, and also packaging now and the marketing of it as well. So I'd like to say we've left no stone unturned.
No.
This is for the future and the longevity of Waterford Distillery.
Yeah, I was down in Waterford in January. I just happened to go down that way and I looked at it, and the site it's a huge, beautiful way it's laid out, where it sits and stuff. I like everything you're doing, really. It's one of those, it's a sort of standout new idea, new concepts, new packaging, new bottling. There's a lot to like about the whole thing.
Yeah. And Martin, like, we're under no illusion, this won't be for everybody's taste. Like, we're really looking at people who understand not alone whiskey, but understand flavour and understand that the differences that we're going to bring to the table. The single farm batches, they're like vintages in wine. It's that we will not be able to replicate one bottle of whiskey versus like the organic bottle of whiskey you have in your hand there. We won't be able to replicate that again because the whiskey is mature a bit longer in the cask. Then the following year's harvest may have been using a different variety. The conditions during the harvest may have been different. So we will not be able to replicate everything. And that won't be for everybody's taste, but it's for the interested person. It's for the interested whiskey enthusiast that might want to know a bit more. They might want to find out a bit actually what is organics about, what is biodynamics about. It's opening up the conversation between friends and whiskey enthusiasts. Down, open a bottle of organic Waterford whiskey and have the conversation. What's this about? What's it made of? The same discussion we have here, like how did Waterford get to farmers and how has actually organic barley grown? And actually, they mentioned biodynamics. What's that about? And it's about sitting down, enjoying the whiskey and talking about it and maybe educating people as we go along as well. And we hope people enjoy it.
Well, it all comes down to people enjoying it, then it's all said and done.
That's it.
I think if you have that mix of, environmental responsibility, nice packaging, design, a story that people can buy into, and then you've got a good product at the end, there's a lot to like about the whole thing, Yeah,
and that's it. Look, and we do, as we said earlier on, we do everything we say we do, and we can prove it as well. So this is not just a marketing ply up terroir and organic whiskey. We're doing it for a reason. We're doing it for the benefit of the customer.
Yeah. Well, Neil, thank you very much for joining us and telling us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Excellent, guys. And look, and thanks for that. If you ever want to know anything else about our products, just give us a shout. And plenty of information on our website there, waterforddistillery.com. Okay, guys, and thank you.
All the best.
All the best. Take care.
Hey, guys.
So that's us back in the room again. We're about to be joined by Michael McKeown. He is standing by for us. Thanks for waiting patiently, Michael. You've been waiting quite a while now. Welcome to Irish Whiskey Review. Hello, how are you, sir?
Oh, am I in your picture? I am.
You are.
Thank you. I don't think you need me on after a while like that. I know nothing about whiskey.
Do you think you would ever try doing an organic one? Do you?
Do you think I'd ever take a drink of one?
I do.
Yeah, my wife and I actually opened a bottle of our 10-year-old a while back, and we actually said, "Oh, that's not bad." But none of the two of us would drink a whiskey if you set it up for it. Good man. Show them the elaborateness of that packaging you've got there. It doesn't have only one door. You have to open 3 doors before you get to the bottle.
It comes on a little wooden plant, and it's got a little medal like an Olympic athlete. So it's like a gold medal winner. Look, see?
That way, hey, I'm going to change the level of this conversation. That way necktie cost about £7 a time, because the first sets that come out look more like plastic than gold, and they had them redone in another metal. But I was trying to get you to. This is a special box I have here. That's the 17-year-old box there. That box costs more than some of these other people's whiskey cost. But anyway, you were talking about presentation, etc. I didn't order this box. I had a predecessor who, in case your viewers don't realize it, because the way I'm acting so vibrant and virulent, I'm 74 years of age. I shouldn't be at this job at all. But I had a younger man in, and he has let me down. And anyway, that's the story for another day. But he really went to town on the presentation here. This little foot that the bottle stands in, that little foot costs about £12. That piece of wood, right? The wee necktie. Oh, sorry, I'm actually unveiling something that cost £500 for me to buy a month ago. There is the original Darcy's decanters.
Oh, yes, very nice.
Right? I believe it's the only one in existence. It's like etched on it. And I got an inspiration when I got it, which I said, "Do you know, that bottle that we have, our 17-year-old, you're about to watch Tutankhamun's tomb unveil itself here. This has got not only 2 doors, this has got 4 or 3 doors. This one has got 4 doors on it. And when you open it, you get inside into our 17-year-old, which allowed me to do the advertising from it. Surprised me. Double gold, blind taste by all the judges in San Francisco put this as 2020's best Irish whiskey. Blind tasting. All right. Well, my man that was getting it ready, he convinced me that presentation was part of the prize, but I can't figure out how it was part of a blind taste. Anyway.
If it's a blind tasting and they don't notice the packaging, there's something badly wrong here. Badly wrong.
Well, that's what I was told from San Francisco. It's a blind tasting. Anyway, I am more than overjoyed at the idea of it. But what dawned on me is we only put out a limited edition of 300 odd of these, but he bought 3,500 of those bottles. That is Italian crystal. That's no just oil bottle. You see that cork? That cork cost about 12 quid. It has got a gold coin inserted into the top of it. The labeling is not a label as such. There's the usual standard label stuck around the bottom, but that's gold foil on the outside of that. Presentation, there's nothing better presented in any Irish whiskey at the minute. I know, because the presentation of this pushed the price of that up in my predecessor's mind to €375. I learned a lesson that my father told me. When he was 14 years of age, his father died in 1919 of the Spanish flu. My father was a breadwinner. So he was sent into the town of Portadown because they lived in a bog out near Lough Neagh. He was sent into Portadown with a donkey and a cart load of turf. And he didn't do a jack in the beanstalk. He did bring home some money, but he mightn't have brought home enough, because when they got to Portadown, there were 6 other boys from along the shores of Lough Neagh selling turf. And you know what? My father only got the same price as they got, no matter how much he needed. So I pulled the price of this product down to the next nearest 17-year-old, which is not half as well. It's in a flimsy cardboard box. You see this cardboard box? That is linen coated, gold embossed. That box alone costs €70.
Wow.
Right? Anyway.
So it's worth keeping if you're a collector. Always keep the packaging, because it's always worth a fortune. Marty always says you should get the packaging, especially the Dunville's Mirror one, because the mirror is going to be worth more than the whiskey someday.
That's what's happened here. Now, what I got this idea is you're going to find out I am much more interested in business than I am in the whiskey. Although I grew up, another story I'll tell you is all my family were trained tasters of whiskey, because we lived above a pub, and one of my brothers got drunk at the age of 7. Everybody to this day thinks he's a great actor, because the people in the street said, "Mrs. McKeown, your fella there is the best actor. He's falling up and down the street like a drunk man." He was drunk. Anyway, we moved out to the countryside, and we had a well. But in the summertime, the well would dry up, and the well was used to pump the water up into a tank up in the top of the house. So my father would bring home water from the blending department in town. And what they used only whiskey barrels. So we were pumping diluted whiskey up into the tank in our house and spent the whole summer drinking it.
Oh boy.
So maybe that's why I don't fancy drinking whiskey myself. But my earliest memories are my father blending. I broke a record one time belonging to a school friend of mine. It was Buddy Holly singing, "Oh boy, oh boy." Do you know how much it cost? 7 and 6pence. And I had to go into my dad, and my dad was standing in the blending store with his sex hydrometer and all out, and his big copper cylinders, and I had to go over and say, "Dad, I broke Paul McCluskey's record." He looked down at me, and he says, "And what's that? What have you to do?" He says, "I have to go and buy another one." He put his hand in his pocket and he took out 3 half-crowns. That's my memory of blending. And although in later years I was involved until the age of 30 in our family business, which not only blended whiskies, we also made vodka. We made vodka from a chemical plant in a place called Cooley in County Louth. That was set up to make tractor fuel out of potatoes. And eventually some boy called Teeling bought it anyway. But before Mr. Teeling bought it, we were buying potato spirit and mixing it with a syrup to make our own vodka. And it was very successful vodka. So I can't pretend I know nothing about the spirit business, but I'm not coming from the place where your last speaker was. Really admire all of that. And I probably will end up with people like that working for me. My role in life is to supply from the bottom. The boss is at the bottom of the pile. There's the hierarchy is described the wrong way around. A boss has to support everybody above him. And the story I like to tell against myself and for myself is in a previous business, nearly 35 years ago. I was involved in what are nowadays called the internet. Before the internet existed, I had created an online system, which sounds like an imagination, but it worked on telephone lines. And it involved providing breakdown services to motor trade and insurance services to banks and building societies. And this fella came to start with me. And to illustrate my belief in what I'm telling you is he asked for a company car. He wanted a Porsche 911.
That sounds like I want one of those for the Irish Whiskey Review, Michael.
I give him the Porsche 911, and 6 months later he come to me and he says, Michael, it's not really far enough up the chain. I need one of these new 944 Targas with the XYZ stripes and the engines and all. I said, Barry, you can have it. Now, people say, Michael, you must be nuts. Well, it wasn't that nuts, because what he was doing was he was selling our computer system to Porsche. So I says to him, Barry, you're leaving Porsche office up there, and you're going over to Milton Keynes to Mercedes tomorrow morning, and the afternoon you're going back to Bracknell to see BMW. What are you going to do? I've had to get you 3 cars. And he says, no, Michael, whenever I drive up outside the BMW office, they're all going to come running out to see my new Porsche. Now, the moral of that story is that somewhere along the line of my journey, I am going to meet a young distiller who's coming home from Scotland, or who has found himself in second place in one of the all nice distilleries in Ireland, and he's going to tell me what he needs by ways of stills and what he needs, and I'm going to get them for him. So that's where I am relative to your last speaker. I am the provider that is behind these things. And, well, really, you have to understand that they won't exist unless somebody puts the funds up for it. All right. Where I am in my project is that I tell it in my little book, which Marty has had the benefit of getting. But I tell Marty in my little book that I retired at the age of 69 5 years ago. And in the little book, I don't like to say it, but it's kind of truth of it is we had our money made. A phrase I've often heard. So I persuaded the wife to give me half of the money that we'd made.
Wow.
And she would hold on to the other half. And I promised her at the time that we would be up and running for maybe $500,000. Well, to confess to you, I'm over $3.5 million spent, and I haven't even dug the sod for the distillery, because I got fixed on this idea, as I mentioned in the book. Where I was sitting in Fitzpatrick's restaurant up there near Carlingford, which is a mecca of memorabilia about Irish drinks businesses. And she was sitting opposite me, and the photo is in the book on page 94, whatever it is. And I took a photo of a mirror in front of me, hand in hand, whiskey, Newry County Down. I says, damn it, that's what I'm going to do. I have a half idea how to get into this business. It took me a lot of months till I figured out where the old distillery in Newry had been. In fact, there was 2 major distilleries in Newry, all mentioned in the book. We'll better hold the book up, because what do you call him? What do you call that fellow? Does it? Graham Norton. Graham Norton's not here to hold the book up for me, so I have to do it for myself.
No, we're holding the book up in 3 screens for you. Have a look to your screen to your left there.
Oh, right.
I'm holding out for you. Don't worry, Michael.
Anyway, it took me several months to locate where the old distillery had been. And I had, the night I come home from Fitzpatrick's, I says, I'm going to look up what I should be doing about this. And I looked up one of these American gurus about how to market whiskey, because she's coming across to you, I'm a marketeer. I'm not a distiller. One of the things I learned from my previous business is that perfection is not actually the way to go. Pioneers get shot. Settlers make money. I've been a pioneer in 2 or 3 other businesses, and the cowboys came in behind me with inferior products and took over the market. Anyway, back to that point. The point that I learned that night when I came home from Fitzpatrick's was started to do a bit of internet searching, and this guru, I just stopped after about 3 minutes of reading, as you sometimes do. If you get a new toy, you open the instructions and you say, damn it, that, I know how to work this. Well, I had one of those moments. And what the guru told me was, tell me your story and I will sell your whiskey.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I became obsessed with the idea that the story was the most important one. And the story I have now worked out is a brand revelation, a brand leader. I hope Marty's got the page or the chapter 2. Newry is the oldest manufacturer of whiskey in the world.
Now, I read this today, and I like this little bit. I want to read this little bit to people because it's extremely interesting. In the year 1144 AD, by royal charter, Maurice MacLachlan, High King of Ireland, re-established the monastery by granting extensive lands around the valley of the Cistercian order of monks. Now, it goes on to talk about that King Maurice MacLachlan in 1144 endorsed chartered Newry whiskey. So it's the oldest authorised whiskey in the world. Now that predates Bushmills by 500 years. 400, right.
Well, what Bushmills will tell you, I have the book of history of Bushmills. Bushmills, and I've been up in the distillery, and what they point out to you is that they have a copy of the charter of James the First of England, 6th of Scotland, granting the county rights in the county of Correa to a Captain Phillips. Now, the definition, or what they also go on to say, is the only evidence of anybody distilling in Bushmills begins around 1742. And I have a collection of their bottles out here in my garage. And I grew up selling black bush and whatever, and white bush, as we used to call it. But the collection of bottles I have out here all say 1794.
When the company was originally started.
Well, the company died in 1895.
Well,
in 1895, went into liquidation. And in their history book, they actually say they've no records for that period, but the records from the Belfast newsletter, the business went into liquidation, and it was rescued by none other than Samuel Duncan of Newry.
Yeah.
And Samuel Duncan rescued it with the assistance. I'm going to go back to reinforcing to you about the importance of markets. He was a great marketeer himself. His brands were the Native, Killeavy Cream. You know where you'll see them? Every time you go to Willie Jack's place, or every time the BBC goes to outside Willie Jack's to tell you about COVID, on the wall behind them, you'll see Duncan Alderdice's big metal sign, and the 3 brands there, Killeavy Cream, Hand in Hand, and the Native. They were all invented by Samuel Duncan of Newry. And he became managing director of Bushmills in 1895. But he brought in a shareholder, a man known as Alsop. Now, Alsop was Lord Alsop, who was a brewer in the northeast of England. Alsops and he had 1,100 tied pubs. That's why Bushmills stands today.
Yeah.
Because of the market opportunity that allowed them. They had overstocked themselves. And all these things are going to repeat themselves in the modern era. They'd overstocked themselves. Market didn't move on as fast as it liked, and there are always casualties in these things. I'd have to confess to you, what happened to me, how I've spent so much in my project, is that it's roughly about. I went down to rent the derelict buildings that you'll see in the book when you get your hands on the book. And here, you better tell them, Marty, how to get the book. Send right.
The story. I tell about where you get the book. Don't worry.
Right. Anyway, I went down, told the wife, I'm going to rent this old derelict building, and it'll cost me about $500,000 to buy the equipment to get started distilling, which I'm sure any of these small distillers don't spend much more than that. But to get to get the derelict shed, I had to buy the whole blinking site, which included a pub and a derelict site and an oil yard, right? And I was glad to do it because I needed to be in control of it. And subsequent to that, I have now regained another acre of the old distillery. It would have about 2.5 acres in size, or maybe more. I now have about 1.5 acres of it, and haven't built on it yet. But so far, I'm up to about $1.5 million of spending just to get the site, because the man in the book told me the story was the most important part of the whole project.
Yes, I read this book this afternoon. Now, you go through, and I'll be honest with you. When you read the book, I can't help feeling you've sort of fallen a bit in love with the whole story, with the families and the people who are there, and this isn't about whiskey. This is about the man himself and his family and his successor, Thomas Darcy Boy. It's much more about that, and I know I understand what you're saying there about building a brand, but I can't help feeling when I read this was much more of a passion for you than whiskey will ever be.
Aye, well, it's much easier to read because of that. But what you may have missed out is that I explain the whole process of distilling from start to finish.
Oh yes.
But I don't do it in a textbook.
No.
I bury it into the middle of their lives so that you don't realize that you're being told about the malting of the barley. You don't realize that you've been talking about the
coffee still.
The coffee still, or the silence thing. It's all spread out in terms of the personalities. And what I'm really pleased about it is that I've had a lot of feedback from people who have no interest in whiskey, but love the story and would now like to try the whiskey, which is, it's probably a very long-lasting marketing ploy. But the whole point of it was I fell in love with that. But what you probably have to confess is, Marty, this is my 4th history book. I am a historian. I've been in multiple businesses, but when I sold from the computer business 20 years ago, now what year is it now? 1995, 27 years ago, I came to live in Uri. And it was the first time in 30 or 40 years that I wasn't traveling or wasn't working to midnight. And I was able to then turn around and start to join history societies and so on. So I have one of my other books is the Book of Newry. I needn't grab it. It's sitting here. It's a big book. But I do believe that that's important, because if you go on all the whiskey tours, well, they're scraping a bit of the barrels of it, but that's not meant to be a pun, but they go to like Jameson's and they say John Jameson was this, that, and the other, but they have very little information about him. And they've actually employed historians now, because they sent out podcasts last year. That shows how important they think it is. Yeah. That the story, when you mentioned it, that last chap from Waterford, you said we all need our story. So I'm a bit overboard on the story at the minute. And a strange thing to say is the older I've got, the more patient I've got. We all think old people are grumpy, but I'm not old. I'm only 45 inside, But
Justin's grumpy and he's old.
I'm not even 45 yet. Listen, Marty always says it's about the history, it's about the story. I mean,
what I say is you buy into the story. The spirit has to be good. There's no point in building a nice brand and a nice story and putting out bad whiskey. That's not going to work. But when the background and buy into the story and the packaging and the marketing, and you take it all on board and it all sort of fits and gels well, and the whiskey's good, then you've got a good product.
Well, what happened to them idiots in San Francisco that gave us a double gold for this whiskey?
That's
hey, Marty, you know what I'd like you to do sometime, because my wife says this is not nice to do. I would like you to publish who was second, third, and fourth.
No problem. I'll find out. If I find out, I'll publish it. No problem at all. Wouldn't cost me a thought.
It's not hard to find out. I'll send you the list.
Just funny whenever you say about historians, and in the book you talk about Jonathan Barden. So I jumped into History of Ulster, the only book worth reading about the whole of Ulster. He brings up where is it? It says here, nearly all the barley in the northwest was grown for making whiskey, and by the 1780s there were no fewer than 40 legal distillers in the County Londonderry, with Coleraine second only to Dublin in importance. After 1779, the Irish Parliament, in an attempt to boost sales of beer and stout, jacked up the excise duty on spirits, leaving only Newry and Belfast with legal distilleries by the beginning of the 19th century. So it says there, Newry and Belfast. So there you go.
Hey, but we were having one of them competitions. I don't like to give an impolite word to it, but happens after you've had too much drink. But one of those competitions on the 1770s, they're only children compared to Newry.
But it's interesting because, I mean, Jonathan unfortunately passed away at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that he even highlights that Newry and Belfast were the same. You know, people think about obviously Belfast, but Newry obviously played a huge part in that.
Right. Well, I like to be controversial this time. Belfast was a swamp and Newry was a city.
Good.
That's absolutely true. That's true. It wasn't until the customs charter went from Carrickfergus to Belfast that things started to change.
Yeah.
Well, what happened in Newry, but you're deviating, is Newry is away inland, and whenever metal ships arrived, Newry was outclassed.
Yeah.
You couldn't get them up into Newry, and that's where Belfast took over and Harlan Wolff put out there. And they had loads of big wide space to build out to reclaim what we know as Queen's Island.
Yeah.
But that's a different story. But anyway, back to your whiskey stories. What I did was I had instructed my predecessor to stay in the premium levels because I didn't want to be selling whiskey in littles. Right? However, I have now done what is common nowadays. I've now done a U-turn. And
as the saying goes, you turn if you want to.
Yeah. A U-turn if you want to. Very good. And to reinforce this news that Newry is here along with everybody, I've put out Old Newry Whiskey, incorporating a piece of the Darcy advert. And guess what? You'll be excited with this. As well as giving 500 quid to that 2 months ago, I eventually found an original one of these. Now,
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, that cost me just €200 in an auction, but it's an original because it was last framed in 1966. But anyway, I have just appeared. This is how. Excuse me for letting me get away with running myself, and I must be due for a fall, because I'm getting too big-headed. But here is how you do subliminal marketing. That magazine there is called History Ireland.
Okay.
And guess what the article is in the page 6 of it this month?
Is it something about Matt Darcy whiskey?
Is it what? It's a page and a half about Matt Darcy's whiskey. But it's not about, it's not about Matt Darcy's whiskey. I sent the poster to a historian friend of mine who's the sub-editor in this magazine. Goes out all over Ireland, you know. What he has written about is the symbolism in this poster.
Oh, cool.
Right? And so I'm going to try and get it replicated, and God help poor Eamon Phoenix in the Irish News. He might get pushed off.
All right. Okay. All right.
Anyway, one last thing I want to tell you before you ask me intimidating questions. Oh, you didn't let me finish where I spent the rest of my money. My brother, who died last year, he's not here to help me. He arrived up in Uri about 2.5 years ago, and I says, Frankie, he's the one who was in the wines and spirit business. Like, we used to have 12 off licenses, 5 of them on the Lisburn Road alone. They're now part of Wine Flare, you know. But I had pubs and an hotel and that, and a wholesale business. But Frankie was the leader of that, you know, all our lives. But he arrived up in Uri to ask me what he was doing. I says, Frankie, I'm going to take my time. He says, how are you going to sell the whiskey? I says, Frankie, I never said I was going to sell any whiskey. He says, what do you mean? I says, look, I've ended up buying a big piece of property here, and I'm not going to build a big mega distillery and be worried about whenever there's a glut happens, and I'm not going to be worried about having too much of it. I just want to make a nice wee amount to recreate the industry here. Yeah. And the place I bought a bar with a license, an on and off license on it, and I had at that stage about 1/3 of an acre. And he says, there's a big car park out the back here, and I need that car park to park the buses in, because I ain't going to pull the tourists off that. The thing that's attracting me most here is recreating the industry and making a tourist attraction to Newry. And he says, well, what about the whiskey? I says, I'm going to make enough out of the bar and the restaurant and the visitor centre. I don't need to sell any of the whiskey. I have enough coming out of that. I'm not going to make gin. Everybody's rushing around to try and find a cash crop. I don't need a crash crop, Frankie. I'm going to make money out of the visitors and the pub and the restaurant. Right.
The one thing I say is, because I just want to tell them where they can get this book, because we are on a little bit of a time constraint as these things go. I want to just tell them, if anybody wants to buy this book, and I can thoroughly recommend this, it's a story of whiskey, but it's a story of Newry and South Down and lots of different stuff. The illustrations in it are really, really beautiful, really nice. Buy it from the Wee Bookworms Club in Newry.
No. Just write to me, info at mattdarcys.com.
Info at Matt Darcy's. They'll take it.
That's much easier. But Marty, I have to tell you that as quickly as you can. Frankie says to me, Michael, you're wrong. You need to get yourself known in the market. So that blew up an $1.5 million. I have $1.5 million of stock and bond.
Right?
For what we've put out in these 3 iterations here, I haven't even dented the edge of the barrels.
Aye.
I have for now 8 to 10 years, and what I had 17-year-old is now 19-year-old.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this. I think we could sit and listen to you all night, but unfortunately we just can't, because we've got a certain time constraint. We're limited to an hour, and we've already shot through that. Isn't that right, Justin?
We are indeed, because we put this out on Instagram as well, and they only let us do an hour. But don't worry, we'll edit out the bit at the start, and we'll focus on Matt Darcy and the fabulous Michael McKeown. And Donna is saying, tell Michael I'll divvy him up a few shillings. There you go.
I haven't time to read all these things, but I might be out looking for it soon.
Here, Peter McCabe says he's looking forward to the 3-hour Christmas special podcast with Michael McKeown. We could do a 3-hour. We could do a 3-hour special with you. Look, Michael Matthews is saying, I'll have to buy that book. What a legend! Wonderful. Julie Mason is saying, thank you all for another great show. Yep, there you go. I'm sure one of those books will be winding its way to Texas, the Lone Star State. And well, thanks to everybody that's been watching tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Do we have anything else to tell them about next week, Marty, or something like that? Do we?
We might be talking to another interesting character next week. Watch this space. We had lined up another guest, and it didn't quite work out. So we're going to try and get her on next week as well. So I think Michael has been just a revelation. He's showing up that Matt Darcy posted. The whiskey, this is good quality whiskey. I reviewed it for the Sunday Life. It's on the website and so on and so forth. Get this book. It's really, really good. And Michael, thank you so much. You've been an absolute treasure.
I noticed my brother there, who's a broadcaster known to you two boys, and he's put up a note there that says, do you know he's one of the quiet ones in the family?
I've seen that. Yes, I've seen that. I put that up on the screen. I did. Actually, Conor O'Hare was saying Old Newry whiskey is on my top 5 of international whiskies list. So there you go. And Michael's saying, another Michael Matthew, this whiskey business is full of great characters. Yes, it not only comes in the bottle, it comes in person as well. Frank Heron saying, very interesting and informative show. Yes, a fabulous night tonight. Michael, I have a feeling we'll be talking to you again sometime soon. Hopefully when this whole thing lifts, we'll get a chance to get down and get sterilized from the coronavirus in Matt Darcy's distillery.
Last thing is, tell them people to go out into their off licenses during lockdown and demand Old Newry whiskey and Darcy's.
You've just done it. Good night. God bless. Talk to you again, same time, 10 o'clock.